into the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Woo! ABTV Limitless series premiere. What's up, AfterBuzz fans? We are here with the season opener. I thought it was awesome. Joining me is the panel.
Emily Kraudel. It was amazing. The show's amazing.
Yeah,
I love it.
Totally. Where can they find you, Emily?
They can find me at Emily Kraudel, like yodel. No, I'm just kidding. It's just at Emily Kraudel on Instagram.
I don't even know how to spell yodel.
I think it's Yodel.
Okay.
But
okay.
my last name is Kraudel.
Totally.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
And then I'm Frank Maiorana, guys. Thanks for listening in. You can find me on Twitter at Let's Go Frank M.
Perfect. And I'm your host, JB Zimmerman. You can find me at JB_Zimmerman. Let's get right into it. Basically, how they get right into it. They hit the ground running right off the bat. Love when they do that with new series. I mean, obviously, this is sort of a continuation of a story we saw in the Limitless movie that came out a few years ago.
In a way, it's a continuation, but they sort of copied some of the elements from the movie, directly. So at the beginning of the movie, we had Bradley Cooper standing on his balcony about to kill himself, and you see this very tense action scene. And then we come in with the TV show, and it's sort of like the same thing. We've got our lead character here, Brian, running away from a bunch of pursuers, and he's weaving his way through traffic. And so it's an exciting start, just like you said. But there were elements of the beginning of this show that were almost identical to the movie.
Right.
So I think it kind of gave them the base of content to start from, and then they expanded out from there.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
Exactly. I mean, I thought it was obviously...
It was nice how they started with the action, and then they go
we
back.
kind
Like,
of
how did we get there?
Tarantino'd it.
Yeah.
Like, what
But
happened?
then
Totally.
it's amazing because it goes back to a humorous situation at the dinner table.
Yeah.
and you find out like this dude is just like a guy who can't get a band, like can't hold a band together.
I know, yeah, that was actually really crazy.
It was awesome.
Obviously they wanted to do some type of like biopic on the main character Brian,
Yeah. Sure.
But I thought it was really effective how they did that. It was not only like a great editing tool that they used to kind of cut time passing, like the time lapse, sort of adding new families, so we can see him staying in one place basically in life as everybody else moves on. He was following his dream as trying to be a singer, musician, and at a certain point it's like, when do you cut that dream off? Like, that was super powerful for me, just sort of figuring out like, oh, like, wow, there is that moment. If you are following your dreams, like, is there a moment where you're like, oh, I have to grow up now? Or later in the episode he met one of his friends that sort of walked away.
Yeah.
Eli. We sort of see him disappear in that scene as well.
And then we find out he was jealous.
Right. That's the crazy thing. It's like, the grass is always greener, but how do you know? It's like you can never be too sure. You
My favorite one is when he's like, it's kind of like a solo project. Like,
just not really a band. It's
kind of like a solo thing.
It's just something I'm working on.
I'm releasing it on Bandstand.
What I liked about what you just said, JB, was that this show has a much more family focus to it than the movie did. The movie, Edward Mora, he's this writer, this dejected writer who can't find inspiration for his book, for which he's already signed a contract. But the TV show, primarily, as we've seen so far, and as much evidence as we've had, is going to be primarily about Brian's relationship with his family. And like you were saying, he's going through his third life crisis. He's 28 years old and hasn't achieved his dream. And so that's kind of when you start asking yourself serious questions. I related with that. I'm 30 myself, so I've been asking myself those questions too lately. So that really hit home for me. But I liked how separate from the movie, it seems like the writers and the creators are going to be focusing more on the family aspect of it for Brian's character.
Absolutely. I think that for this premiere episode, they did sort of like a mini movie.
Right.
Made it very similar to the original Limitless, and sort of had a bigger plot line sort of involving Bradley Cooper, as we'll talk about. Yeah. But I do like how they wrapped it up sort of in making a longer story arc. It is about his family. It's more, there's a continuation of his storyline that we can follow for...
It's like his story, but I think it just takes a complete turn whenever he finds out his dad's sick, and then that's all he cares about. Like,
oh, exactly. I mean, that was, that is such a huge motivation. It reminds me
of Breaking Bad, kind of,
No, definitely. He's like, exactly.
I'm going to use drugs to get rid of this illness.
Very similar to Breaking Bad. Definitely
and you really liked the dad. If I can remember correctly.
Yes.
While you were watching.
I'm glad you bring up an important note to remember. Boom. I hope we can
I like
in.
the dad.
Well, tell me why you like him. Why do you like him?
I liked his acting, actually, and I liked
Great actor.
Yeah. He's like, what are you doing with your life, you idiot? No, I'm just kidding.
But it wasn't in a negative, derogatory
not at all.
way, like, you're a loser, what are you doing with yourself? It was a genuine concern of a father for his son on his hospital bed. And I thought that was really interesting, and that, kind of like you were saying, he's a great actor. I remember him being in The Negotiator with Kevin Spacey, Samuel Jackson, and he played Frost, and he ended up being the ultimate villain in that movie.
Yeah.
But a great actor to play something subtly that is more a cause for concern, because a bad actor with that scene could take it in a direction that's negative, that's degrading to his son, but he walked this nice little rope between, you need to get your act together, but I care about you, so what can I do?
Yeah.
Right. That's a really good point about sort of subtlety. I was noticing that throughout the episode. There was smaller things that they did. Obviously they had a lot of graphics on the screen at certain times to help explain the story. Yeah. But also they did a lot with color temperature. There's a lot of flashbacks. Those were very clear because they went to like a different, like sort of a green. When he took NZT for the first time right after he met his buddy Eli for lunch, the whole thing changed. It really showed like how this was different. Now his eyes are open, and it makes it really clear like what's happening.
Yeah, it's like this dude was like Manning, like my nose, like all over the place. He's like 100 miles an hour, and it's awesome because whenever he's on NZT, you can tell he's just like, it's really cool.
Yeah, and one of the side effects of the pill that they explained to us in the movie is that your iris color becomes much more saturated. Yep. So we can see that, and even in the color correction like you were talking about, the whole frame becomes saturated with color. There's a lot of orange, just a lot of green in their eyes.
And the FBI lady was like, I could tell that you were on it because I saw the glaze.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's weird. I wish people would just like, because people think I'm high all the time. But if they would just look at my eyes.
I wonder why.
If you think she's high right now, hashtag OBTV Limitless.
Emily, hi. Actually, I do have to say this because I have this video on YouTube, and there's only 3 comments on the video.
Only 3?
Only 3. And so,
solid comments.
Yes. Well, they said this girl died in a car wreck in 2011.
Wow.
And that I was dealing grade A Molly, and my nickname is Molly Bra. So kind of like Hoppa Boy.
Please comment to this after show with the link so people can see these comments.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yes, I will totally do that.
I mean, speaking of death,
back to the show.
After we find out all this bio stuff about what's going on with Brian, he gets incredibly hungover. Tells his dad sort of everything he figured out after doing this whole like research family tree thing. Basically tracks this often misdiagnosed disease that his dad might have, and sort of suggests that he should get tested.
Which might be hard for him.
Exactly. I mean,
that would be hard to say to your dad.
Right.
I think.
Right. I mean, I think it shows that their family is very close. Obviously, he stumbled out of his room. He's still living at home. He looked very like alcohol hungover.
Totally.
And his parents were just like, oh, God, Brian. Classic Brian, just stumbling down the stairs. Which I think is true for a lot of, rock musicians. He's in a band. That culture is very, like, pro-partying and sort of lives a nightlife.
Yeah.
Like a nocturnal existence. But, he
And
tells
when his
him,
dad hears it,
Yeah,
like
his
a lot
dad-
of people, whenever you try and help, you feel like they're not helping when it's bad news,
Right. Well, especially since it's such an unreliable source. It's like, okay, my like screw up son that's in a band is gonna diagnose like my disease.
He's like,
right
you
now.
do research for a night, and now you suddenly think you're a doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a natural reaction to have.
Yeah, he's definitely skeptic on it,
skeptical.
which I don't blame him. If knowing his dad, obviously he's supportive of his son, but I mean, you're not going to jump to the conclusions like, oh, totally, you're right on. Clearly, you are the expert that's gonna. These doctors I've been seeing know nothing. Right.
But I feel like part of it was he realized it's kind of true because he knows his family, and I feel like maybe he's heard about his iron deficiency before. And he just doesn't want to believe that he has.
Right. Well, it seemed, his demeanor from being in the hospital and sort of saying, like, they still don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's probably been a long life issue that he's been battling and sort of, little symptoms have shown up, but nothing really has cured him, which is why he's able to figure out that it's a family genetic thing.
Yeah.
But good news is they actually do get tested. He figures out that he was right, and they just need a transplant. So it sort of sets up the motivation for Brian, sort of figuring out how to get a donor. Obviously, it's not easy to just get good organs right off the bat.
Right, exactly. And I like that storyline because it was original to the show. The movie came into play in this show with the first scene when he takes NZT working as a temp at the bank. It was similar to the way that Bradley Cooper was writing 90 pages of his book. And then when Brian tells his supervisor at the job, well, here's your 5-tiered folder system and here's all these things I know about you. It was the exact same scene structure as when Bradley Cooper as Edward Mora was interacting with his landlord's wife who was in law school, and he saw a corner of the book and she gives him resistance, and then they eventually sleep together. Right. So,
which was like about to happen.
It was about to happen.
She totally wanted. She was like, oh my God, I think you know me.
I'm so glad it didn't happen though, because
Yeah.
at that point you're simply copying the movie.
Right.
And so when, exactly like you're talking about, when this hospital and father and family scene started coming about, I said, okay, good. They're going in an original direction now. And by the end of the show, most of the movie scenes that they had brought in directly were largely gone, which I was excited about.
No, exactly. I love the fact that it was similar but different, and really went in a direction that was selfless. Like in the movie, I think it's a lot about his motivations. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's a struggling writer, and he wants to get his career off the ground, and it's really only about his life. I love that.
But then he realizes he can do anything.
Yeah,
so he's
exactly. And so the sky's the limit, which is cool to
Right.
watch for sure. But I think it's a lot deeper of a storyline for this show that can go a lot,
like we said, like Breaking
many
Bad,
different directions because it's exactly. It's not just
like
about
life or death for his dad,
right?
Which is crazy motivation.
Yeah,
he's gonna do anything
he
for
just
that.
seems like a much more humble guy. He's been trying to like do his own thing and lived sort of as an aloof, but it makes him more human. It's a more approachable. He's he can be
Kinda
part
like
of a
Chris
team.
Pratt, like
exactly. It's sort of like more of an unlikely hero.
Right. Exactly.
I thought it worked really well. I thought it was a really likable lead, and I can't wait to keep watching.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm excited too. Okay, so the bullet in his leg.
The bullet in his leg. Totally. Well, yeah, I mean, real quick, getting to the bullet, obviously, he's trying to chase down all these leads. There's a few loose ends. Obviously, the Hoppa Boy thing didn't quite work out, so he's chasing everything. That's the cool part about this show is sort of, it's like he's a superhero, but of the mind. It's like everything he sees, he can figure out the end answer right away, which is awesome. I think that's the coolest thing ever. But so he's following all these leads, basically figures out that one everybody in the business that took NZT tracks them down. They get killed off. He finds his way to Adam Honeycutt's, who is the actual killer. He notices that the tiniest little thing is off in his perfect apartment.
Right.
Which is funny because he's not on NZT then.
Right. Well, yeah, he's definitely coming down.
Yeah.
Which,
he's coming down. Yeah.
I think he may
probably
just
if you
started to coming
like,
down.
Yeah.
Because he was still obviously firing on a few different cylinders. He was just slowing down.
Yeah.
You know, he was trying. He's
like, I'm about to fall.
Exactly.
That was convenient, I must say, to fall and try to grab the tree, and then he hears it like. Actually, it was funny because I remember thinking that's a funny kind of way to fall. And then I realized it has to be that way because he has to grab the tree.
I mean, there weren't a lot of decor items in there. So, I think that was like one of the few things he could brace himself. But yes, very convenient and lucky that he happened to touch the one thing where like the evidence was buried. So it worked out.
Yeah,
it worked out for our hero, which is a plus. Mm-hmm. Finds the money clip, who his buddy Eli quickly whipped out when they had lunch, that he knew had the drugs in it. So he takes that. Honeycutt busts in with a gun, like totally trying to kill him. Ends up shooting him in the leg. They make it to the street, and that's where they sort of have words because they both know, he can't shoot him in public, obviously. Right. So they have.
But I wondered if he could. Because
I did too, actually.
Brian's picture's all over the news. He's a criminal. So what if Honeycutt shot him and said, "That's the guy from the news who's all over. He murdered a guy." That was one thing for me, plot-wise, that I didn't quite understand.
Right.
So they go off and they have this scene between each other. Yeah. I think once. Oh,
you mean in an apartment? Why didn't? Well, he tried.
Yeah. Well, he definitely tried to kill him in the apartment. I think once they hit the street, he was thinking, moves ahead. Obviously, we had that scene with the chess and like how calculating this drug makes you.
Right.
I think he was more anticipating that, it would be easier to just get this guy like later. He can't do anything. He can't go to the cops. I don't have NZT in my house. Like, how is he going to prove this?
That's a good point. He did say that.
I'll get you later. Like, he didn't need to sort of draw a scene. And, if he did kill him, obviously, he may have gotten out of it. Like, maybe, like, he's a very smart guy. He could have lawyered his way out. But, shooting someone in broad daylight in a public place isn't the easiest solution sometimes.
That's very true. And that's a great point, because it would have had to have happened right away, right outside the apartment building there. Because once you get into the middle of the park, you're right. Honeycutt has all these different options that he can use so that he doesn't have to ultimately get caught.
Exactly.
And I feel like his motivation's kind of like with the company more, since he just wants to be like the best at his business or whatever, and that's why he shot Eli in the first place, because he stole his ideas. So I feel like he's just like.
Wait, what's he like?
My ideas are the best. I'm the smartest person ever.
I think it makes you very selfish because you are ambitious. You can do sort of anything. And it makes you very aware of your own abilities. There's a line in it where he said, like, he literally knew how much strength he had, exactly, like, to the muscle fiber. Like,
grip
that is
strength,
insane.
Baby.
Like, if you had that knowledge, like, you would think what you'd be able to do. You'd literally be able to push your body to the absolute limit before anything bad happened. So I think that's kind of blinding in a way.
Which is interesting because, he gets to Eli's apartment. And you kind of see, like, the two paths he can take and you realize, wow, this is addiction, dude. Because he looks at him, he's dead. He's like, I can call the cops. Like, that's his instinct, And then his conscience is like, probably like, call the cops, you know? This guy's dead. But he's like, shit, I need a pill. Shoot, I need a pill.
Well, that's what's cool about the show is it's flirting with this duality of, yes, this is really great and I can do great things with it, but it's also a drug. There's bad stuff can easily happen. not just the side effects, but you know, the ambition can take you so far that you literally kill your friends to get more of it.
Yeah, and I love that scene where Brian shows up to Honeycutt's door, because it was a complete turnaround for me mentally watching that scene, because Brian's begging to get in. Please believe me, I didn't do the killing, and yet he's talking to the killer, which was such a fun turnaround when Honeycutt walks out, because we all realized it at the exact same time. Like, oh shoot, this is this is the one. So I love the way that the creators and the writers built up that suspense, and there was some surprise attached to it.
And it's crazy, just the 180 that this drug does. I mean, you start at like the top of the world, literally the most smart, intelligent person in the world, and then, you know, a few hours later when it wears off, like, you can't even move. Like, he was literally crawling on the ground.
That's what I put
you know,
here.
Throwing up all night. Like, it's like the worst hangover of his life.
I have this line that just goes down the page.
It just right here. Hung over
fast.
line.
You go down fast. Hit rock bottom, dang. I'm like, is there any drug like that? I don't know.
So obviously he gets shot, needs to patch up the wound, calls Rebecca, you know, sort of gives her some good seeds that she sort of starts to believe him. You know, she's doing her own research. She's actually crazy smart too. I mean, the fact that she obviously could talk him through stitching a bullet wound. Pretty impressive.
Well, he's like, dude, you guys do that right.
But
why would I help you?
You know, also she was really knowledgeable about, you know, she went to go see his family, figured out a bunch of stuff too, and just straight up detected that whole thing, like saw his photo for a second, knew that he liked this like ice cream shake. Which was crazy. You know, she's sort of, and she's not on NCTs, which is
I thought that would
insane.
be really hard, because that a week ago I was maybe wanting some cake, and my roommate had gluten-free cake, and so
not the same.
No, it's totally not, but it was frozen, and I was so hungry, and it was in the morning, it was breakfast.
Frozen gluten-free cake? This sounds horrible.
But I was like, I'm just gonna try it, and in my head I'm like, I just need a pill. No, I'm like, I'm just so hungry, I'm just gonna take the tiniest slice, you know. So I get the knife, the sharpest knife we have, and trying to cut a frozen cake. That's hard.
I mean, this was not like ice cream cake.
No. Right? And so I'm like trying to get the tiniest.
Did you get it?
Trying to get the tiniest sliver, and it's like, and I slice open my finger.
Okay.
And I like look at it, and then I passed out.
Jeez. Yeah, well, I mean, you definitely can pass out.
So I'm
from
like,
pain.
how is he not passing out? Then he did pass out.
Did Bradley Cooper like wake you up and take you to safety?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to bring it back to the show. So you were talking about Rebecca, and I love her, Jennifer Carpenter from Dexter.
Oh, she's
yes.
Yeah.
I think it's Deb. I mean,
Deb.
It's hard for me not to see her as Deb. Luckily, she's a similar character, which makes her very believable, because I've known her as Deb for so long. I don't think it's gonna be that bad, because she does play that role very well. There's some people that can't handle like the woman cop role in a serious way. I think she nails it.
I think she nails. In my opinion, outside of Bradley Cooper, she's the best actor on the show, because she has such a believability in every moment. It feels like she is this person every single time. She's so grounded in each scene. And we see it from the very beginning in the opening scene when they're on the train tracks and she sees something in Brian. I think we as an audience can kind of see her thinking. And I think that's when those moments just explode for us as an audience.
100%. I completely agree with you. I think that she didn't have that many lines even in the show, but she conveyed so much with just her facial acting, her eyes. They speak volumes. Like, I mean, you can... Like, she can convey so much emotion that's going on. You know, that scene when Brian had sort of broken into her place, like, that was crazy. You know, as he was sort of figuring out stuff that she was pointing out, they really didn't say anything like that, like intense to each other, but we went on this roller coaster of a story, found out a lot about her with just sort of her emotions, how she was taking it and how he was. I thought that was a great... well-crafted scene.
Absolutely. I agree with you. She's really special. And then when Bradley Cooper comes in, he adds this whole extra amount of just gravitas.
Right.
There's a real difference between, and it's not really fair to Brian to have Edward Mora be in a scene with him because Bradley Cooper's just so electric on screen. But that was my favorite scene in the entire episode, was between them two. Because Brian's like, why do you want to help me? I don't have any. And I was asking myself the same thing. What interest does Senator Mora, who had the best line of the show, by the way.
Yeah.
He
Agreed.
said,
I know.
do you know how much time we have off in the Senate? It's unreal.
Yeah, exactly.
Funny.
Yeah, in
awesome.
response to the fact that, are you going to run for president?
Right.
That's his only drawback. Is I value my free time.
I like the time off.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how much we get in the Senate.
Yeah, that was great. But the
awesome.
scene going back and forth between them was so well defined between the two characters. Why do you want me here? Because we as an audience are asking that exact same question. So the writers were anticipating our thoughts in a way and then had Bradley Cooper answer it. I think that's one of the most intriguing parts about this show going forward is, what does Senator Edward Mora have in store for Brian?
Right. No, he definitely. I mean, that cameo was great. But he definitely laid the groundworks for I'm going to be the puppet master behind the scenes, and you're going to do whatever I say, which is cool. Yeah. Because he's a likable guy, and the gravitas that we're talking about really showed because he had basically reached the limit. He had been taking this forever, or since it came out, since the movie, probably.
Yeah, he said 4 years ago, so I think we're 4 years past the movie action.
Yeah, it was just great to see sort of where it could take you. He had basically infinite knowledge, could remember being in his mom's womb, that feeling,
that's amazing.
which is gross, obviously, but interesting. It's
I can remember.
When's the last thing that you can remember? Maybe 5? I have a memory from when I was 6, maybe.
Interesting.
It's just crazy, that power. He even seemed to have control over aging.
Yeah.
It just really sort of opened the door to what the possibilities could be in, future episodes, seasons down the line.
I noticed that whenever he said, I don't know why people get old, but then his face looked old for a second.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Really old. It had a scar and a line. You could see all of those pores.
Yeah, that was a great, very trippy, effect that they used.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't obvious.
Right.
You had to guess. Was it?
Yeah, it's sort of is that happening?
Right.
It's not
that's what I thought. I was why is it doing that?
Exactly. Is that weird? Is that my eyes? Yeah, no, exactly. There's a lot of little details, I think, that in this show, which makes it really cool. One thing, just back in the beginning, they showed a poster of Senator Eddie Mora on a bus, a
subway stop.
Yeah, a subway stop.
Or a bus stop,
and it was just
real
those sort of homages, the little details. Even when he was jumping into the train tracks, he grabbed a phone really quick and shot reflected the light so the guy would stop. Insane,
dude. And then I thought it was over.
Yeah, when you thought the 15-minute mark.
It's oh my gosh, that's amazing. No, it's not. It's all painful.
Well, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Moving to the next part of my second favorite scene was the bank robbery scene.
Yeah,
because
awesome.
he literally does a little bit of magic and grabs the security guard's gun, and again handles the scene in a very skilled way, in a nice way,
probably the calmest bank robbery in history.
Right.
I think.
So he's able to command the entire bank, and then I love the moving shot where they roll up onto Brian just sitting on the table, kind of dangling his legs over the table. It's kind of like a little kid just, I'm robbing the bank here. Can we bring my FBI agent to me, please? Thank you very much. I love the little snarky attitude that comes out when he's talking about that, and then obviously he takes her downstairs and we discover what's in the bank box.
Yeah, exactly. Very fun scene because he was displaying the exact opposite you would expect a bank robber to behave. Telling his full name, telling the lady the clerk to sound the alarms and call the FBI. But again, the little details really show through because he was there just because of Honeycutt quickly mentioned, oh, yeah, I don't keep NZT at my place, just being cocky about it. And that one thing that he said led him to figure out, okay, like, where would he put it?
Right.
When we figure out these records, kind of reverse engineer where it would be. And obviously lockbox is a pretty smart thing to do. He kind of had one shot at it, though. So if he was wrong,
so if it wasn't there, the best part is that it wasn't just in the thing, and he's like, oh, crap. He's like, oh my gosh, it's not here. And then she's like, look at the watch, which I don't know.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I think the morality of the characters is really good, because it's not just anyone. I think it's not a drug that just makes people perfect. It's sort of an enhanced version of yourself. So if you're a bad guy, you're going to be like a Honeycutt, killing your friends just for a few more pills.
Well, and even as you were just mentioning that moment, and you're talking before about the duality of the two characters, you have one person who is enhanced with a drug and another person who is not. And it was Rebecca who was the one who pointed out the watch. Yeah. Which is really interesting, because shouldn't the one who's being enhanced by drugs be the one who ultimately figures this out? But she did it on her own. And that's what I love about her character. She seems to earn it in a way that Brian obviously didn't.
Right. Well, it's really cool to see that she, is the real deal. If we're obviously going to follow these characters working as a team now. Sort of, he's become a consultant to her task force. She's managing him. She's sort of his boss, I guess. Right. Yeah. But it's really cool to give her that legitimacy that she is really good. Like, without drugs, she obviously showed, a lot of remorse for addicts. Her dad was involved in that and disappeared, ended up dead. I think that she's got a lot of hesitancy to work with someone that, is on drugs. And I think that that's the real point that they try to make. Even though it can bring great things, it is still a drug. I mean, the whole reason it's not mainstream is because it should really mess you up, like big time. And the only reason it doesn't do that to Brian is because he met up with Eddie, who gave him like the secret antidote that would allow him to do it. And
now, Rebecca has her own motivation, and I feel like the only reason she's helping him, I mean, she's going to obviously care for him after a while, but she wants to know. She believes that her dad was on NZT. And she's like, I'm going to find out if he was, and you're going to help me.
Well, yeah, and because she's basically holding the power of the relationship. She's like, for all intents and purposes, his dealer. I mean, he's kind of, he's just average Brian without her giving him the pill like every day or however often they work together.
But it was kind of nice because he's really not addicted, I mean, I don't know. He was like, the only way I'm going to work for you is if you get my dad a liver, period.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, he definitely played a card because he does have something. He doesn't, for the time being, doesn't get negative consequences from taking NCT. Yeah. So that definitely allows him to become this super smart human, at will and
that was
not
an awesome
die,
scene, actually, because she comes in and he's like in his pajamas. Like, she's like, you're going to work for the FBI. And he's like, dude. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I'm going to play my guitar unless you get my dad a liver.
Yeah.
And then it brings it back, though. You were saying before about the Rebecca's dad. That sort of propels the series forward. Now we have a direction from an audience point of view. What is the big case that they're going to be investigating now? This seems like it's going to become more of a criminal procedural type of show. So what is our overarching themes? Number one, we have family, and number two, we're going to have family on both sides. So you have Brian's family and now Rebecca's family and her storyline with her dad, which I thought was really interesting. And then when she revealed that she saw the eyes, the same eyes, that was really interesting to me. Because all throughout the show, I was wondering, why didn't she shoot him? Were you wondering the same thing?
No.
Oh, okay. So you knew. Well, you knew beforehand.
I obviously thought that she had some took a liking to him.
I just thought
took a liking. Okay.
We definitely didn't get the confirmation for like how deep that was.
Right.
The fact that her dad had the same look, and that's why it wasn't just like, oh, like, you know, he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
It was like, I've seen this before. My dad was on NZT, and that sort of gave her an answer that she didn't have.
I didn't think that it would have been enough for her to shoot him, I guess. You know, I don't know.
Well, then you have no show. So you can't shoot the lead character in the opening scene. Thank you very much. Unless you do it, you know, 3 seasons of story in between, or 7 or however many this show ends up going.
Weird though, 'cause how did...
Well, hopefully for a while. I do think that they have a lot to draw on. I mean, we can talk a little bit more about it in predictions, but you know, they set up a lot of different things. I thought that they did a great job with the premiere, getting us up to speed with the backstory and making it really interesting and cool.
Yeah, I agree with you. I liked it a lot. Yeah, and I liked the ending too. Like you were saying, using his power as a new recruit to get his dad a liver. And what was interesting is with Brian, you don't see a massive physical change. At first, he's got a beard. His haircut's okay. It's nothing disheveled the way that we see Bradley Cooper in the movie, but there's just something different about the way that he carries himself that his dad notices. Right. So it goes back to what we were talking about before about subtlety. It's not this dramatic makeup and hair transformation. It's rather something sort of small. And I think ultimately, what that means to me is that the writers and the creators of this show respect the audience. They think that we are intelligent enough to pick up on smaller things. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they have in store for us.
Exactly. It's a smart show. I love that where they don't have to like spoon feed it to you. You know, it kind of rewards you for watching it again and again. You know, it's sort of like a movie where, you know, it is.
You could go
deeper.
back and watch it again and probably stuff.
No, exactly. And that's what's cool is like it's a show you need to like pay attention to and like follow the details because, you know, that makes it a more rewarding experience. Very cool. I had a blast watching it.
Yeah.
Before we get to predictions, I do want to talk about a little bit of news stuff because, you know, this is a very relevant show. Obviously, the movie came out a few years ago, but this is still very much in the news today. The idea of Neuro Enhancers. They talk about one when he first meets Eli, his buddy, and he says, you know, have you heard of this? I'm probably going to butcher this name, modafinil, is a drug that is supposedly the first smart drug that doesn't have any adverse effects. So, you know, obviously there are enhancers that people use for concentration, Ritalin, you know, Adderall. I mean, even to a certain extent, caffeine and nicotine do these things. So it's interesting that, you know, this drug was first created to treat narcolepsy, you know, people who can't control falling asleep. But they've done tests that don't show like any bad effects from people that don't have that disease taking it, using it, and they obviously have more concentration. They're able to do things more effectively, test higher if they're studying for something, which is really crazy. I mean, there's a lot of morality issues, values and stuff that come into play when this gets released. It's like, if this is an actual thing you can just buy at CVS, like who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to be performing at the top level? I mean, we all, you know, no one snickers if someone grabs a coffee in the morning to be a little bit more alert. Like, will this get there? What
would you do if you could take a pill that would allow you to have maximum brain capacity?
I mean, honestly, I would take it. If I didn't have that crazy hangover, I don't see why you wouldn't.
What would you do when you're on it, though? That's what I'm saying. If you could build something,
had the NZT
if you had the power,
man, sky's the limit. I'd be super JB. It'd be pretty sweet.
Absolutely.
I would solve all the world's problems.
Yes.
What about you?
Well, actually, I take nutrition shakes.
Okay.
They are like unreal. Like, I haven't been sick in like 12 years.
Do you put NZT inside them?
I actually am the sole owner of NZT in the world.
Nice.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Well, we're going to raid your house later.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. As long as you don't make anything bloody or tear up my pillows, you know? I'm just kidding.
Fair enough. Specific fears you have.
Wow.
Oddly specific. Frank, what about you?
If it were up to me, I would love to figure out a way to allow teleportation. I've always been fascinated by that. Like if you could walk in somewhere in LA and be in New York in 2 seconds later.
Exactly.
I mean, how cool would that be? Just to you would connect families much faster. I mean, we have planes, of course, but you wouldn't have to worry about time zone differences and feeling different.
Locating.
Yeah,
by
teleportation would be awesome.
So that
time
would be my
travel.
goal. Yeah.
It's
I'd like to crack that nut for sure.
It's actually Padre Pio. He's a saint. And it's his feast day today.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much like Elon Musk. He's like solving world problems. Like, energy crisis. Let me just carry that in my back. Space issues. Let's terraform Mars. Like, that is the. I mean, obviously, making trillions and like an insane fortune would be step one.
Right, of course.
But
or just
I think that would.
I mean,
that's kind of the first step to solving everything. I mean, why wouldn't you want to check everything off the list?
Yeah.
If it was that easy. I mean, he just Brian in the episode, did like filing for the whole company,
that's
like in that room.
insane.
Like it just seemed like he was like, okay, let me just do this real quick.
Right.
It seemed like you aren't really satisfied unless you're accomplishing things.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
I'd love to hear what our listeners would do with it. So please use the hashtag ABTV Limitless. Hashtag ABTV Limitless. I'd love to hear what everybody has to say about what they would do if they were on the pill. I think that'd be really interesting.
I would jump from that building to that one to that one to that. I would do all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would jump.
I hope everybody talks about what they do, how they like the show, what they want to see. Real quick, just a prediction from everybody over the course of the season. What do we want to see? What do you guys think's coming down the pipeline?
Go ahead.
Okay, because I'm so excited.
Ladies first. Let's do it.
I'm like, okay, this is crazy. I don't think that Rebecca's dad was on NZT.
Ooh,
I'm serious.
That's a good prediction.
Because, she said he was addicted for 10 years. I don't know how long Bradley Cooper's been. He wasn't in the FBI, right?
Well, no, I think that he may have been like a recreational drug user and then just did NZT that one day. Because she repeated a line, which I think was in the movie, like, I was blind and now I can see, or something to that effect. So I think that he had just done NZT that one day, and then he was like, I'm turning things around. I'm gonna be awesome, Dad, now. And then he gets killed.
And then he gets killed. Or did he commit suicide? I don't know. Because he was under the bridge.
A possibility. I think that he. I mean, it seems like the NZT crowd is a dangerous one. So I think there's a lot of death.
Wow.
Death and killing.
Okay, my prediction. I am predicting that Brian and Rebecca will hook up. I thought it was going to happen during this episode. I said to them while we were watching it, I'm like, kiss, here comes a kiss.
And
here
I was
comes a kiss.
just shaking my head.
But you watched it yesterday, so you probably already knew the answer before that was coming. But I totally believe that they're going to hook up at some point. During this season. So? Absolutely. The tension when they were on the roof, it was there, and I was like, here it comes. But of course, they've got to make us wait for it a little bit longer before it happens. But no doubt they're going to get together.
Diggity.
No, yeah, I can see that happening. I mean, I like that they didn't do it right away. Sure. It wasn't just like, oh, okay, this is going to be this relationship.
Right.
No, I'd love to see them be Plutonic, for a season or two, and then maybe something happens down the line to deepen the story. I'd love to see another cameo from Bradley Cooper. I don't know if that's going to happen maybe in the finale or something, but I'd love to see what he's got planned, how he's going to use Brian sort of as a pawn to further his endeavors. Mm-hmm. If he's just sitting back as a senator and doesn't want to be president, what does he have up his sleeve? What is he doing to make sure that they can still take this antidote when they need to? I don't know. And I'd love to figure out how often they need to take it.
Right.
Yeah, I think just once.
He definitely mentioned that it was like a couple times.
Yeah, it's I think 4 months. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the shot. You have to take it every once in a while. Can't remember, but it'll be interesting to see, kind of like you said,
if he's even in it.
How does he handle taking NZT regularly, and if he's going to he's going to come off it? What happens if he can't get the shot? If they run out of NZT, how is he going to handle it?
I think it'll be interesting to see if Brian's motivations change when he's in the FBI and if he's like, I'm gonna run this show now. You know what I'm saying?
Get a little cocky with it. No, we might see that. We might see that. I mean, I think that he's a very humble guy, so I want to see a good superhero Brian working with Rebecca rather than like crazy intent like Honeycutt.
So now we're gonna have to see a good villain though. Now that's Honeycutt is gone, so I'll make another bonus prediction that we're going to meet a dynamic villain character soon.
Right. Unless it doesn't turn into Brian.
Exactly. No, I have a bad feeling about Rebecca's boss. I mean, we sort of found out that she knew about NZT. They obviously have access to NZT, but they don't know why like everybody's dying after taking it. So I wonder what she's, her motivations. Obviously, she wants to figure out why Brian is so special.
Right.
I wonder if she's gonna maybe capture him, maybe do tests, or maybe try to track down Bradley Cooper and that whole line of this antidote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right. She's an interesting character, something we haven't mentioned or talked about yet. But you're exactly right. She knows a little bit too much information about this whole process.
She's got some stuff up her sleeve.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And she doesn't strike me as a warm character. Seems to be somebody who's fairly calculating.
I liked her.
You liked her?
Yeah.
What did you like about her?
I thought she was good. I thought her and the dad are good.
Her and the dad.
Disagreeing about
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll agree to disagree, because I've got my eye on her.
Yeah,
I'm watching her.
I have my whisker. I'm just kidding.
Nice. Well, until next week, we moved AFTERBUZZ TV studios this week. It's very fancy, as you guys can see. Next week, we're going to be at a regular time on Tuesday nights. You can catch it on all the usual areas, iTunes. Please remember to rate and review the show. YouTube, definitely leave a comment. And hashtag ABTV Limitless. Till next week, where can the good people find you guys?
At Emily Kraudel on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Let's Go Frank M. Thanks for listening.
Perfect. You guys can find me at JB_Zimmerman. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Those are the hosts only do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals. From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.